And now we get to the final part of my WWE Royal Rumble 2019 review. And of course, I saved the two Royal Rumbles for last. And I'm going to start off with the Men's Rumble because sadly, I don't have that much to say about it. It really let me down. There's just not really much I can remember from it. It was slow, and there wasn't that many things happening, especially not compared to the women's match. Like, I remember three main things from it. One being the opening where Jeff Jarrett came out at number two, then Nia Jax entering the Rumble for herself, stealing out to a spot, and then the third, of course, being Seth Rollins winning. Other than that, the middle part of the Rumble was pretty. It was pretty slow, and there was a lot of moments where nothing was happening, and especially since this was the main event, it was the match that went on last. It just and like I believe it started at like 10:48. On the East Coast, at least, it started 7:48 for us. But me and Aiden, we were watching it really late. We needed it to be good. We needed it to be exciting and have a bunch of big moments like in the Women's Royal Rumble, and it just didn't. And it's just sad, to say the least, about it. Now, the only thing that really saved it from being one of the worst Rumbles, in my opinion, is Nia Jax. When she came out and beat up R-Truth, similar to when she beat up Lana earlier in the night, but she beat up R-Truth, and she stole his spot, and she entered, and she started abusing the male superstars, and then that's when things really got good. The Mouse Superstars then retaliated, and you had Ziggler Superkick her, and then Rey Mysterio 619'd her, and then finally Randy RKO'd her, and I gotta give it to Randy Orton. He is amazing with the RKO. Like, when I first saw that, when I saw him deliver that RKO to Nia, it scared me. I really thought he had taken her head off, if not broke her neck forever. And then Nia would have had to come out and give a Daniel Bryan-like speech on Monday, but no, that's not what happened, thank God. It was that was probably the best spot of the Men's Royal Rumble. And then you get to the finish, where it's Braun and Seth as the final two, and then they were battling it out. Of course, Braun is the stronger of the two men, so Seth is the underdog. But Seth is also the favorite, and he at the end of it, he curb stomps Braun off the apron to win the match. And I love that moment, but at the same time, I was a little let down, not by it, but by the timing of it, because just imagine if he never brought the curb stomp back just yet, because it got banned for about a year and a half. Imagine if they would have saved the curb stomp for something big, and then in that moment when it was just Seth and Braun on the apron, he sees Braun is down, he sees his opportunity, so he lifts his leg and brings down the whole force of it onto Braun's head, and that's what eliminates him. And then the crowd pops, not just because Seth won, but also because he brought back the curb stomp to win the Royal Rumble. That would have just made Seth's victory even more amazing. Oh, and on a side note, for all the people that watch me who are also One Piece fans, my friend Aiden, he showed me a picture of Jeff Jarrett when he was younger, and he was wearing glasses, and I am not kidding you. Jeff Jarrett as a young man actually looks like Don Quixote do Flamingo, and that just made me pop for the guy even more. And I didn't even know the guy. Like, I had heard people talk about him here and there, but I mainly only knew him by name. And so now moving on to the Women's Royal Rumble, and I have to say, this should have been the main event. I'm not saying the women's Royal Rumble should always main event the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, but it should have on this night, especially with how big, how over Becky is. She Ho winning it should have been what we left off on. But what I have to say is that I am so proud of the women's superstars because they came out here and they entertained, like they did everything they could to entertain. And I also have to give my props to WWE Creative because it seemed like they actually tried to entertain us this night with the Women's Royal Rumble, even more so than the men. Man, and you start off with NXT superstar Lacey Evans, so she's recently been recruited to Raw, I believe. Oh, I think it was Raw and SmackDown. And that's a smart move because you give her the time she needs to really show off what she can do, and that might help get people on her side. And then you bring Natalya in at number 2, who's a veteran, and that's a smart move because Natalya knows what it takes to be in a wrestling match on the main roster. I don't think Lacey Evans has even had one match yet on the main roster. So having a veteran like Natalya, who she is always at least in the upper mid card of the women's division. Like, she can help Lacey really show off what she can do. Now, aside from the beginning, like I said, this entire Rumble was just really good. There was something happening at every moment, whether it be because WWE Creative made it happen or the superstars improvised. And by that I mean you always had something that seemed important going on, or something that made you laugh, or something that made it more intense and made the predicting who would win the Rumble a little harder, especially since we didn't know what the status of Becky Lynch was after she tapped out to Asuka earlier in the night. And so one of the first big things I remember is that one of the Iconics, I think it was Billie Kay, she came out after the ring had filled up with women, and she was saying, I don't want to get in the ring until my friend comes out. And then I think the next entrant was Nikki Cross. And, you know, she's kind of psycho, and she comes out looking all psycho and everything, and then she locks eyes with the Iconic, and she just shoves her into the barricade for a funny moment, and then she gets in and starts beating up on everyone. That seemed like it was the WWE trying to entertain us. And then next you had, one of the best parts of the Rumble was you had Zelina Vega, I think her name's Zelina Vega. She was hiding under the ring for a little while, and she would keep popping out of it and laughing at all the superstars who had been eliminated. And as she's doing that, I'm scratching my head and I'm thinking, you know, if WWE actually has a moment of continuity in this, then I think Hornswoggle should pop out. Because remember, a few years back, they had a segment where Triple H and Shawn Michaels, they were having this thing going down with Hornswoggle, and he invited them down to his world under the ring, and so they actually went under it, and it turns out there was a totally new and different world underneath it, and there was a bunch of people living under it. Like, that's what it reminded me of, and I was really hoping they would do something with Hornswoggle. And when did you know it, at one moment when Zelina Vega's laughing at, I think it was Dana Brooke who got eliminated, out pops Hornswoggle for what I think was actually one of the biggest pops of the night. And everyone is cheering and laughing, me especially was laughing, and then they can they continue the moment by having Hornswoggle chase after Zelina Vega, and he causes her to get eliminated. But he doesn't stop when she gets eliminated. He keeps chasing her. Like, he really wanted to experience the luck of the Irish on this night, and it was just a really funny moment, and a moment of continuity that I gotta give my props to the WWE for actually pulling the trigger on. Now, at some point middle in the match, I don't know if this was improvised or if WWE Creative just decided to, throw darts at the wall and see what jokes and moments they would put in this Rumble. But Kairi Sane, the pirate superstar from NXT, there was just this one really strange but comedically entertaining moment where she's not fighting anyone, and there's no one around her, and she's just hanging off the top rope like a sloth would, and that's all she's doing. And I point at the screen and I turn to Ida, I'm like, what is Kairi Sane doing? And he looks for a second and he starts to laugh. And then we start making Pirates of the Caribbean jokes, like that part in the first movie where that military guy was like Norrington's assistant. He's like, that has got to be the best pirate I have ever seen. It just led to another entertaining and funny moment, even though I'm pretty sure not a lot of people caught it in the end. But if you can, go back and look at Kairi Sane, like, keep an eye on her throughout her duration in the Rumble, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, this next moment is more of a sentimental moment for me, because Rhea Ripley from NXT enters, and I'm looking at her, and I'm all shocked. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I turned on it again, and I'm like, dude, look at her. Look at her body structure. Look how tall and broad she looks. And then look at her facial structure. She actually looked like one of my original characters I created in the WWE 2K series. I'm not joking. And, like, all you had to do was dye her hair blue. Dye Rhea Ripley's hair blue. And she would look like one of the women superstars that I created. And it was just a really nice moment for me personally, and Aiden personally. And that really made me want to want Rhea Ripley to win the Rumble. And then finally we get to number 28, and it's Lana. And she's injured from what happened during Rusev and Nakamura's match last night, or on Sunday. And her ankle's injured. She can barely move, and she is struggling to get in the ring, limping. And I feel so bad for her because I've torn my Achilles before. I know what a serious leg injury feels like, and I felt so bad for her. But it made me feel especially even more sad and sympathetic towards her, because the referees are trying to escort her to the back, and she's like, no, I can still go. And she's like, tries to smile and step on a leg, and every time she does, her smile vanishes, and she's just like, and it reminded me of one of those pedigree racehorses who break their legs, and then for some reason their owners decide to put them down. And it was like she was a pedigree racehorse who broke her leg, and she was just begging not to get put down. I felt so bad for her. I wanted her to make it to the ring and win, but that wasn't the case, because then you had Nia Jax come out at number 29. She beat up Lana, and then she got in the ring and started destroying all the competition, and it was just so sad. Like, if it wasn't going to be Rhea Ripley or one of the other superstars I wanted to win, I wanted it to be Lana. And then finally you get to number 30, and it's Carmella. And Carmella, she, you're not expecting anyone else to make it to the ring. will come out because she was number 30. And then Lana's still on the outside. Then you see Becky Lynch approach Finley, who's tending to Lana, and she tells him Lana's not capable to compete tonight. You need a 30th girl. You send me in. And eventually Finley agrees, and Becky gets in the ring, and she starts fighting and proving why she should be in the main event of WrestleMania. And then of course you have that moment where she faces off with Nia Jax, and it's a big moment. The crowd pops for it because Nia Jax was the one who broke her face, of course, and Becky was ready for revenge, and they come to blows, and the crowd is just going crazy. They're all chanting for Becky at this point, and eventually Nia Jax gets eliminated, but not and then right after Becky's leg gets injured. I don't remember how, but somehow like it collided with the floor barricade, and it gets injured, and she walks back up the steps, and then back here comes Nia Jax again, and it's like she's Jaws appearing in the camera, about to take like his final kill of the movie, and she just shoves her off the steps, and it hurts her leg even more, and this creates tension because Charlotte, of all people, is the last woman standing in the ring. She's ruling the ring, and Becky's the last hope for the WWE Universe to not have Charlotte main event once again. And so Becky finally makes it in. They fight, and eventually it comes down to the final moments. And I admit I'm not a fan of this, of how the Women's Royal Rumble ended, because for some stupid reason Charlotte made the stupid decision to just charge straight at Becky. And Becky, at this moment, she was already ducking and holding on to the second rope. So even if Charlotte would have collided with Becky, Becky would not have gone over the top rope. And Becky saw this coming, and she just launches Nia over the top. Oh, not Nia, Charlotte over the top rope. Charlotte catches herself, but then Becky just punches or slaps Charlotte off onto the floor, and she wins the Rumble. And it's just a really big feel-good moment. Everyone's happy. I'm happy for Becky Lynch. I mean, I don't really think it was fair given how she entered the Rumble, but hey, apparently Finley has the power to allow people in the Rumble, so I guess if the WWE is not going to say anything about it on Raw and SmackDown, which they didn't this week, then I guess it was fair to begin with. So overall, I think the Women's Royal Rumble far surpassed the men's. I was entertained every moment of it. I'm so proud of the women's superstars. I hope that they can continue to improve every year and make the Women's Royal Rumble just as big as the man, which I believe they already have, but I want them to keep it like that. And maybe the Women's Royal Rumble could always be the one that main events at some point. But anyways, overall, the Royal Rumble pay-per-view, it was a roller coaster pay-per-view. It had a lot of highs, it had some low moments, but for the most part, it was a solid show. Long, but solid, and I'm pumped up for WrestleMania season. Let's really celebrate this year, guys.